I always find it glitches like literally right when you're about to start as well.
Yeah, and then you're like, oh, are we on or are we not on?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
But then it's just like, oh, we're here now. I'll just edit that bit out a little later on. So first and foremost, Sammy, thank you so much for joining me today. I've been following your page now for a little while, following what you do, and a little bit about your story. I'll introduce you a little bit, and then we'll get into it. But from living the high life, £24,000 in debt, and then to debt free in 18 months, and now you're helping thousands of people take control of their money. What was the turning point that made you commit to change?
It's such a good question, man. Like, if you'd have asked me this 10 years ago, would I be doing what I'm doing today? I think most people would have laughed you out of the room, including probably myself in that as well, mate. So, yeah, look, it was one of them things. I was living a life that I went to university. They gave me a credit card and a a student bank account with an overdraft on it, and I hadn't been taught the value of a pound from my parents. Lovely people, but they spent everything they earned as well. And so I just thought that was normal, right? You just spent money when it came into you. I got rid of it as fast as I possibly could. But also, I got kind of wrapped up in a lifestyle, which perhaps was like, I was a party animal, basically. I'm not going to beat around the bush. And so I like to go out. I like nice things. And so I waxed all of that money. And so it got worse and worse and worse. And I was funding debt with debt, taking out more debt to fund the lifestyle. Money was coming in. We were running club nights, and I was in that world and that lifestyle where I felt like I had to always be out, always be showing up, always be showing off as well with new things, new this, and it just caught up with me. And so I didn't realize it was kind of getting as bad as it was. I was just very much like I compartmentalized it. And a lot of people do that with debt. They just forget, like, they're like, oh, it's fine. I'll sort it out soon. And then it can build up and build up and build up. And then a friend of mine basically turned around to me and said, hey, mate, when do you want to retire? And I was like, yeah, no, I'd be 50. It'd be lovely. And he was like, well, great. That sounds good. Well, how much do you spend a year? And I said, for argument's sake, for now, I'll just say 30 grand. That's what I'm spending a year. And then he said, right, well, when do you want to pass away? And I said, well, I'd love to get to 80.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, okay, well, that's 30 years. Take that 30 grand, times that by 30. Do you have that? That's 900 grand. And I was like, I hadn't told anyone about my debt up until that point. And he's a really close friend of mine. He's done very well for himself. He's now runs a university. And I just basically poured out, and that like moment of awareness around that, like I was actually thought I was, the man
Mm.
or whatever, and then realized very quickly that I had a long way to go. And I'd always been interested in money and business and sort of growing these things. So I came back and I just dove into absolutely everything I could find: books, podcasts. Wasn't as many podcasts back then, but everything was very American focused. There was like tons of Americans out there. We had Martin Lewis, and he's amazing, done an incredible job for the industry, but wasn't really what I was after at that
Yeah.
point in my life. So I came across the Dave Ramseys of this world, and put in place sort of restrictions around my social life, and went and flipped my mindset into a growth mindset.
Mm.
And it changed everything for me. And yeah, as you say, I sort of got debt free in 18 months through a combination of the income that was coming in through my job at the time, and also side hustles as well. I went heavy on side hustles to bring in income. And yeah, and once I hit zero, it was like, what next?
A weight lifted off your shoulders. And it's so interesting there that you mention about the heavily American influence on finance, which is what drew me to you, without obviously trying to blow too much smoke up your ass or anything like that. But it's so refreshing as someone from the UK to see someone from the UK do this, because myself have a personal interest in this, always sort of wanted to be better, that growth mindset. Not very good. Hold my hands up, I could definitely be better. We've
There's
all,
a thought that
yeah,
counts.
yeah, it's we'll keep trying and we'll get there eventually. But it it was dead refreshing to see what you was doing, and sort of one of the reasons that I wanted you on the podcast is, I reckon there's a lot of people, especially in the UK, that are seeing these American influences. You mentioned your Dave Ramsey's, people like that, you've got all these books. It's some that you've pointed out. They are brilliant books, like the Algebra of Wealth and stuff like that. I know you've talked about how good that is, and I've read it on your recommendation, and it was brilliant. But what was the biggest sort of learning curve for you, and the biggest moment to translate that to the UK? What did you do first, if you as a UK person, rather than having all this US access?
Yeah, great question. So, like, a lot of it translates over into the UK. It's just dollars for pounds,
Mm,
right? So you can translate some of those things over quite quickly. But what I noticed was that it took a big effort to actually understand the terminology, even that some of these, like, supposedly, finance friendly
yeah,
influencers in the US were using, or even authors. So you have to, like, dissect it. And I was like, actually, when you dissect it, it is so bloody simple. It doesn't have to be like this big thing that they make it out to be, in these horrendously long words that are really difficult to pronounce. Actually just mean, something so simple when you just explain it with an analogy, like a chocolate bar or whatever that might well be, which is something that we do quite a lot. And so it's like, I just, that bugged me for ages, because I went on this journey, started really getting into money and learning about it. And then COVID came along, and there was like an explosion of like people wanting to know more about money.
mm,
And so it kind of, what I did was I set up a WhatsApp group, because people were asking me, because they knew I was on this journey and they were doing things. So I had a little WhatsApp group going, and then someone was like, "Can I add my mate in? Can I add my mate in?" And then it grew and grew and grew, and we had this WhatsApp group of about 200 lads, and
wow,
a few ladies in there as well, just like asking questions. And I like, eventually I was just like, "Do you guys just not have anywhere to go for this?" And they were like, "No." And so I was like, "Well, ding ding ding." I've always sort of liked talking and helping other people. I ran hospitality businesses. That's what I did. I ran nightclubs, bars, and music venues. And so I was very like brand conscious, because it's constantly you're coming up with ideas, new nights, new brands, new branding, new names for them all the time, drawing people in from different areas, different walks of life. And that's been my life. And so I was like, well, actually, all of that translates to me teaching about money. And what if I put a bit of a spin on it and start putting like proper old school nostalgic bangers behind the
yeah,
music, and behind the videos that we teach stuff, and like we try and do it a little bit differently, so
more
people are like,
relatable.
oh, I can relate to them.
Yeah,
Yeah. So we started writing blogs mainly, then transitioned into social media, and it's just been nuts. Like, the growth has been way past what I ever really expected it to be, and now I'm here.
it's mad how just your own personal journey, and similar for me in this. And when you find a passion, it doesn't really feel like work. I imagine the magnitude of what you're doing now. There is some stressful days and difficult times, but on the build up to that, I imagine it, without putting words into your mouth, I can imagine it felt like quite a privilege to showcase the journey that you've been through yourself, and then to help others. And something that I really wanted to ask you is, during that 18 months and during them initial phases of you becoming debt free, I can imagine
Mm,
that was a conflicting time for you as maybe a person, and like your identity as this party boy, and the high roller lifestyle. How did
mm.
you stay motivated during that 18 months? Because it would have been so easy, I imagine, just to slip in to old ways.
Yeah, you're totally right. Now, the key for anyone when you're doing mainly anything in life is to gamify it. And so that's what I did. I loved strategy games, playing up Football Manager and like all Total War and all of those types of games. I loved like Assassin's Creed on the Xbox and things like that.
Great
So
game.
it was like first person game. Yeah, an unbelievable game, right? So for me, it was like, well, this is now a game of business. Is basically, me, I'm playing the game, and this is actually quite good fun. But guess what? I'm the main character. And so I've got full control over this. And I just think that that's like such a powerful concept of like, when you can do that around your money, you can do that around your life, you can do that around your business idea, you can just gamify things, and you can make levels for yourself, And that could be getting out of debt. That could be like, I've got to get £100 off my debt, £200 off my debt, whatever that might well be. And you just keep going like that because you're challenging yourself. But each step is actually doable rather than looking up at the big number and going, well, that's going to be impossible.
Yeah.
We'll just break it right down. But you're totally right. The mindset shift had to come. But it was really realizing that actually, like, all of these things that I'm doing does it actually provide me any value at all? Or is it a flash in the pan of me actually thinking I'm really cool, but probably most people thinking, what a knob, right? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, like, that was a real hard realization of things, and asking myself that question and just going, right, as the new jacket that I've just bought, it felt great in the moment, but literally 10 minutes later, as I'm walking down the street, like, that hit of dopamine is gone. And so it's the same for people where they buy new cars. Like, they drive it off the forecourt, they drive it down the road. It might be great for a couple of days, but after that, the novelty wears off pretty quickly, and that's a pretty expensive cost and a depreciating asset. So, yeah, exactly. Yeah, start filling the tank up there. You're totally right. So, like, it's asking yourself those questions. We're playing a status game. There's cheap debt out there available for anyone that wants to get their hands on it. So if you really want the thing, you could probably go and get some cheap debt and go and get it. But then you got to pay it back. And a lot of people don't realize that. You can Klarna your bloody Deliveroo now. I mean, it's like, it's wild how far this has gone. And so it's just about having those controls and measures and actually spending things on things that provide you value. And I put a rule in place. So anything that was more than £50 back then, I call it the £100 rule now. Anything that's more than £50, I have to wait 24 hours before I can buy it. And 99% of the time, I never bought it. And so that money stays in my pocket. And, you're seeing 20% off something. You think, yeah, what a great idea. Yeah. That's great. Well, that's 80% that you've just spent. Yeah. So it's just having those types of mindsets around things. And it was a journey. Like, I'm not going to say like I flicked a switch and I was Mr. Perfect, because that's just not, and I'm still not to this day. I get suckered into things all the time, but winning more battles than losing them when it comes to your spending is the key thing. And just going on that journey, because I'm an everyday person and I've taught myself this stuff and now I teach it to other people. It's not like I'm like went and did, some deep level of PhD. I read books and watched YouTube videos, man. It was not that deep. So like anyone can do it. And that's what I want to try and install into people.
And I love that. I love that you say that you're an everyday person. And I think that's what makes you so relatable, and, people can resonate with you. And something you mentioned earlier, which was really interesting and sort of been stuck in my brain since you said it, is that, you had this WhatsApp group and it was predominantly lads. Do you think that's a common theme in the UK especially? Do you think like fellas struggle with like keeping up with the Joneses mentality a little bit more?
Yeah, I think so. I call it peacocking. And we've got to show, especially when you're young, you want to show off to try and get the girls, right? And that's literally was the game, right? That's basically why I was out all the time. I won't let my missus hear me saying that too.
We'll edit this bit out. We'll cut this bit.
No, we're 8 years in. Yeah. She knows. But the that's true, yes, to some degree. But it's the same for girls with their ASOS splurges, and they want to look great. They don't, and they have their own sort of little girls groups. They don't want to be seen in the same outfits, and so there is that crossover. Like, it's just what we're spending stuff on. Yes, the group was predominantly lads at the time, but it was mainly because that's was my friends and their friends, and then occasionally they might add their girlfriend in and stuff like that. So really amazingly, now we're actually 54% women on our listeners on the podcast and on our social media. So there's a really nice mix, and I think that's something which I wanted to sort of be in the content. I didn't want to be a laddie guy. I didn't want to be too feminine with the way that we talk about things. This is stuff which affects both sides, and so it's just a way that we try and present ourselves to, obviously every now and then a bit of lad and a bit of bro comes out in me, but I think that it's me.
Resolves the default a little bit, doesn't it? But it's true.
Yeah.
It affects everyone, and you talked when you introduced it slightly about your relationship with money growing up, and I completely relate to that. I think it's one of them things in it. The schooling system does a lot of good things, but it leaves a lot to be desired. About everyday life and what we do. We might know what
Mm.
photosynthesis is, but most people don't know what APR is, and credit card percentages. Which, when you look in the grand scheme of things, these things are super super important. And when you started this WhatsApp group, and COVID hit everyone, and I think it was probably the first time that, especially sort of in my situation and reflecting on me, is that it's probably the first time that I wasn't spending for the sake of spending as much. And do you think that was a common theme as well that you're seeing in a lot of people, and they was finally having the time to sort of sit back and think, fucking hell, I'm just pumping money for no reason, and in reality I don't need to.
Yeah, yeah, because it was just you weren't able to go and do the
Yeah.
things, and then suddenly you've got a bit more disposable cash. You were a bit more aware of it. That's why debt levels massively decreased during COVID because people just had more money sitting around, because we were forced to like stay inside. So people naturally got like into saving, into investing, into like learning about these things because they had a little bit more time on their hands. And so it was a brilliant time to sort of start this. And I think now it's got more and more important, and more people are paying attention to it because they're being squeezed left, right, and center at the moment. So the cost of living has just gone through the roof since COVID, really, just absolutely through the roof. Like people are having to be more conscious about where they put their money.
Mm,
And those that aren't are finding it way harder. And those that are taking just 30 minutes a week or even 30 minutes a month just to like, okay, let me work out what's going on here. What can I do? Can I listen to a podcast? Could I read this book? Could I watch a few videos on YouTube about investing or saving as accounts or whatever, just to get my knowledge up a little bit? Because I always say to people, they think that they need to go on this like PhD level of knowledge around personal finance. Everything you need to know can be taught in 2-3 hours. And then 99% of it from there is your habits and staying consistent.
mm,
That is literally personal finance in a nutshell. Do you need to know what APR is? It's useful. But like, you're not, you can get away with like, okay, what's a savings account? What's an investment account? And what's a pension?
mm.
Because everybody knows that like you got to pay your money back on your credit card.
Yeah, make sure.
Um, yeah. So like there are certain things which are more important. And if you want to carry on going down the terminology is, then fantastic. But start there, start with the basics.
And I think as well, it's that fine line, and I've definitely been guilty of this, is not trying to be a professional learner and just keep learning and learning and learning and then never apply. And I think people,
100%.
I am that person. I can be guilty of that. I'm like, well, if I read another book and then or listen to another podcast, then I'll do it. And then you get caught in that cycle of just next time. And I think that is a real thing as well. But how important is action when it comes to like grabbing this by the scruff of the neck?
Yeah. Yeah. I know someone very well who's like read now 20 personal finance books, but then has loads of money sitting in a current account.
Mm,
I'm like, dude, it is 5 minutes to set up a savings account, move that money over, and you could be getting 4% interest on it. You have literally lost thousands of pounds by procrastinating in that area. So learn something. And also, when you take this upon yourself, learn stuff in bite-sized chunks. Okay, what's a savings account? What's a cash ISA? Okay, I'm going to go open one. I'm going to put some money in.
mm.
Do the thing, learn the thing, take the action. And that is what's really important with personal finance, because there is so many cross opinions about what you should do, whether you really should invest in this place, that, whether you should put money in your pension, your stocks and shares ISA, a cash ISA, savings account. And if you let that conversation happen too much around you, you will just go into the world of making like bury your head in the sand because I can't make a conscious decision for myself. When doing something is always better than nothing.
100%. And I feel like you've segued quite nicely there into a question that I wanted to ask you, is how important is investing? And I think you hit the nail on the head there, because society has always almost made people terrified of investing.
Yeah,
Because you're going to lose all your money, you're going to lose this. But the example that you just made there about, your pal, is that people don't really see the loss of their money if it's in a bank account. I think you had someone
100%.
on your podcast, didn't you, where they was talking about like your brain can't process exponential growth, but I don't think it can also process like the opposite of that, which is what you've mentioned there.
Yeah. So you hit the nail on the head. You're on exactly the right track, right? So here's the thing. So in the basics of money, right? Inflation, which erodes the value of your money through the increase of prices in goods and services, right? That's all it is. People make it sound so complicated. It's things getting more expensive. That's it. And
Freddos.
that roughly happens around about 3% a year. What
The
was that?
Freddos, that's always the best
Yeah,
example.
Freddos. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, you nailed it. Yeah. I mean, I got the top chocolate fingers the other day. Like, you remember they were like $1.99 and you used to get like 40 of them in a pack. Now you get 32 of them and they're like £4. And they're smaller
Yeah,
as
yeah.
well, cheeky.
Shrinkflation. That's the pun in it.
Shrinkflation, you got it. Exactly. Yeah. So it's just wild, right? Like, and this is the world that we live in today because, these companies try and make a profit from us in every way they can. But anyway, inflation roughly goes up 3% a year, right? So if you're not beating that, if your money's sitting still in a current account, your money is devaluing by 3% a year. So if you have £100, it's now worth 97, even though you still have the £100, right? And then if you're saving money, if you're getting 3% from your money, then your money is not moving anywhere, even though technically the value is going up. If it's 4%, you're up 1%. And that is why saving money is never going to be enough. It is massively important for the short term. So for things like Christmas, holidays, car insurance, even saving for a house, you don't want to ever invest that money because it's important. You're going to need that money in the next 5 years. So I call it the 5-year rule. Any money that I'm going to need in the next 5 years, I put that into a savings account. Any money that I'm happy to contribute to future me, and that can change through seasons of life, then I would invest that money. And the reason being, investing has this stigma around it where we do see these big risk warnings and we do see these like, you will lose your money. And, you make Dave down the pub whacking all of his money on some, mad stock and losing all his money. And there is those aspects to it, but there's also the tried and tested methods of longer term approaches where you can invest into things like index funds. And going back to the chocolate example from earlier, a really simple way of just understanding this is a chocolate bar is Apple stock, for example, and a box of Celebrations is a fund. Inside that box of Celebrations, we've got lots of different chocolate bars, lots of different types of companies. But when you go to buy it at the shop, you pay for one price for it. And that's what you do with a fund. You buy a fund, you get lots of different companies inside it. And an index fund is just simply a list of companies from a particular region or location. Now, a very famous one is the S&P 500. And that's roughly increased, when you do this over any 20-year period, roughly increased by 10% a year since its inception. And when you invest for 20 years or more in an index fund like the S&P 500 or a global index fund as well, because there are global ones, there are UK ones, there are French ones, there are lots of different ones. The S&P 500, if you invest for 20 years or more, is 0.1% chance of losing money.
Madness.
So 99.9%. If I turned up to you today, Jack, and I said to you, hey, mate, would you take this offer of making money if I said you got a 99.9% chance of making money on your investment? What would you say?
I'd bite your hand off.
You'd bite my hand off, right? In every single walk of life, if someone says that to you. And that is the cold, hard facts. Now, yes, there is the like old age saying of like, well, what if nuclear war or Armageddon kicks off or there's a zombie apocalypse, right? You ain't going to be worried about your stock portfolio, guys. Like, you're going to be worried about, how can I steal a pint of milk or a baked beans off my neighbor down the road? And you're probably going to take a pitchfork to him and to get it, like that. That's the reality. Okay. So like it's a worldwide, apocalyptic event is what's going to stop your stock portfolio. Is the world going to carry on growing? Are the companies in the world going to carry on growing? If the answer is yes, then the stock market increases in value over time. However, in the short term, it's extremely volatile, and that is where people get very, very nervous. A stock market crash happens roughly every 3.3 years. A stock market correction, which is where it drops by 10% or more, happens every 1.2 years. But if you look at the chart, it goes one way, up and to the right. But in the short term, it's like a zigzag effect. So you just have to like block that out, go monthly with it, 10% of your salary, 5% of your salary, whatever you can afford, and just keep going over long periods of time. And that's where you get the effect called compound growth. And that is where your money, small amounts, can turn into massive, massive, massive amounts with time.
Set and forget.
100%. Yeah. Even if it's a fiver, like people think that they undervalue that, because you never know, in 10 years time, you might be a bit more flush and you might be 200-300 quid. But that five has been working its ass off for you that entire time.
And it's just getting started, like you said, isn't it? And it's sort of this goes nicely into the question that I had. So, you know, if anyone's listening to this and this is the first time they've ever heard about personal finance, you know, investing, you know, them alarm bells are going off around this, but you've put the mind at ease slightly, which I imagine you have, especially with the celebrations analogy. That was a cracker. I like that one. But is there any sort of small habits, you know, you see like payday routines, things like that? Are they worth, like, have they got value? Is there any other habits that you've come across in your time doing this that you would recommend to the everyday person getting started?
I'm so glad you asked this, because a lot of people say to me, well, how do I get the most out of my money? And the simple fact is a large part can be automated. So you don't have to worry, because they're like, we all do it. We get to like the 16th and we're like, oh no, that bill's come out. I forgot about that. And it's really easily done. And there are some great tools out there, and one's coming up as well.
We'll get into that.
Tease on that. Yeah. And the simple fact is the more that you can automate things, the more control you have over your money. So we use something called the 3-bank rule, and it's 3-bank system. Sorry, the 3-bank system is essentially when your money comes in, you have 3 different bank accounts, and they do very different things. And people are like, "What? I have 3 different bank accounts?" But yeah, with 3 different providers, and that's how we set it up. And it's really not long to do, 10 minutes, and it's already set up. So how it works is you get paid, and then you do something called paying yourself first. And paying yourself first is the most powerful thing in the world, because you've worked super hard for your money. Why not put some of that money to work for you as well? And you're basically saying, I am the most important thing here with my money. It's just a mindset trigger switch, which just empowers you that your savings and your investments are more important. So your money comes into bank number 1, and then immediately it goes over to the 3rd bank, which is a savings account. And that happens like clockwork, and that could be 100 quid, 200 quid, whatever you can afford, because the key bit to do before this as well is just to like at least write out all your expenditures and, you know what's going out every single month, and those bills, those sneaky ones that are on the 12th and the 16th.
The PayPal ones you forgot that you set up.
Exactly. Yeah. Those subscriptions, those cheeky ones. And also, and then basically once you've done that, you've paid yourself first, you move money into bank number 2. And that's where all your fixed bills and direct debits and your rent, your mortgage, all of that comes out. And that just should get drawn down over the course of the month, because you've put the right amount in. And if some people are like, well, I've got a few variable bills in, what I do is just put a touch extra on top. So you never like lose, like you've always got a touch of contingency in there if you do forget about it. Exactly. And then what's left in bank number 1, guess what, guys? That's it. That's your money.
That's the make it rain money.
Yeah, right. That's it. Hit the club, do what you want, like, you know, but it's got to last you. So if that's £1,000, you've got £250 a week. If it's 500 quid, you know, or 600 quid, then that's what you've got to make work. Like, and so that's the reality. So you've done your savings, you've done your bills, nothing's getting not paid, and then what's left is yours to go crazy with.
So, you know, that money you've mentioned there, which I think is a super important point. How many people are overly harsh on themselves and then don't allow themselves that freedom and that, them fun coupons that you could call them, that even though you still have to be mindful of it and sensible with it. But do you often see people never even give themselves that sort of time off the leash, and that can be counterintuitive maybe?
Yeah. So I see it from all sides of the spectrum, and usually it's very rare that someone sits in the middle. And the people that sit in the middle are really quiet about it, and they just crack on, and that's a good thing. So either they just like wax it all and then worry or get themselves into credit card debt or dip back into their savings, and that those are the people that just don't have that control yet, and they've got to work on that. It's just habits. It's really difficult to change that mindset, but if you work on it slowly, you'll get yourself out of it. And go back to that value. If you are that person, go back to the like, is this providing me any value? And put that £100 rule in place, and you'll slowly start to move out of it. But there is people on the other spectrum, which is like save, pay my bills, and live off baked beans, and turn the lights off everywhere around them as soon as they leave the room. I know people should do that, and that's the right thing to do. But you know what I mean,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's that like
Overly anal
ultra
about things.
frugal, very anal about things, exactly. And for those people, it's a case of like, for me, life is for living. So I have like a non-negotiable 15% of my personal budget a month. I am waxing this on something which I want to do. Like, and that could be new trainers. It could be, dye my hair purple, whatever that might will be, is whatever's important to me, new tattoo, whatever. Like, it's your money. Like, go and have fun with it. Like, live your life, but just don't forget about the rest of things at the same time as well. And so make sure the bills are paid, definitely save, but have fun with your money. And if that's only 5% now because things are tight, so be it. But just make sure you do, even if it's something small. And that's going to look very different for different people. That might be just a trip out with your mum for a bit of carrot cake in the local cafe. And if that's what it is, and that's what and that's what you want to do with your money, then do that. But just make sure it's in there, because we have to remember that we can get stuck in this sort of like never ending cycle of just like pushing money away and not enjoying ourselves now. And there has to be a fine balance to it. Otherwise you can sort of just not really exist. And that's not what we're here for.
And I love that. And a question that came to mind when you were speaking there was, so that's sort of from one extreme to not another extreme, but you said that it's a lot more controlled and a lot more mindful than what you was obviously at the beginning of your journey. What's been the most important mindset shift for you during your own personal journey?
Yeah. So um, basically seeing everything that I'm spending as like a liability, and having, for me, I got into like an accumulation mindset. Like, what resources can I go and get and bring them over to me, like an accumulator of assets, and building multiple little things and having fun with it and exploring who like I am, and learning along the way by doing, and rather than like being scared about that might fail, making sure that I have tested whether or not it will fail,
Mm.
and ticking that box off. And when you do that more times over than not, you hit winners. And it's exactly the same mantra with the way that we do our content now. Like, we put out hundreds of pieces of content a month, hundreds, and probably 5% really do very well. But if I'd have let the 95% get to me the first time, then I wouldn't be here today. And that kind of mentality can be brought over into absolutely everything you do. Fail hard and fail fast, especially while you're young, and do it over and over and over and over again until you land on the thing that actually does bring you value. Because it will. It's just a case of repetition and reps, and you don't know what you don't know. But if you continue with being scared about it and not putting yourself first, you will end up being like, I'm in an okay job with an okay salary, and guess what? I really regret I didn't go for it. You go and Google right now, and go on YouTube, and literally, after you've watched this and listened to this, by the way, but like what the lessons are that old people will tell younger people.
Mm.
It's live your life and like do what you want. So that means you need to go and do those things, and so you're going to need to accumulate the assets and the resources to be able to do that.
And that's
Because none of us grew up dreaming of like sitting there being content,
yeah,
right? We all
perfectly
had
put.
big dreams for ourselves. So go and chase that. And like, this is a journey that you go on over time. You don't just flick a switch, but it's just start with the book, start with the podcast, start with the YouTube video that's bringing stuff to you. If you're binging Netflix for 3 hours a month or just 3 hours a night and sitting there on TikTok till 1 a.m., like you've got an issue, you can flip that time around and put it to good use. Even 10% of that time is going to start paying off for you.
100%. And there was something that I read a long time ago, and it was like, without sounding too morbid, it was be the architect of your own prison. Like, we design
Hell yeah.
what we do in life, and it can be rather grey and bleak, or it can be colourful and it can be enjoyable, but you are the main person that decides that, and the way you put that together, then I think will resonate with a lot of people. And you talk there about the winners that you had, and something that I'm interested in. With hindsight's a wonderful thing. We all wish we had 2020 and we could go back. In hindsight, is there anything that you would have done differently? Obviously, that feels like a stupid question because where you are is brilliant, and obviously you're smashing it. But is there anything that you look back and think, maybe I would have done that different?
Yeah, do you know what? I think when you say that, it comes down to more the personal relationships that I had.
Mm,
Like, what would I have done different? I probably would have been one nicer to myself along the way, because I can be pretty harsh on my own worst, critic, and I have to learn to actually sort of, even now, I'm like, I should probably take stock every now and then about like how far I've come. Um, and so be nicer to yourself, but just be nicer to the people around you, man. Like there's relationships that I have in my life that have, I was thinking about this earlier, I lived with a guy throughout uni. We were best mates for 6 or 7 years. I haven't spoken to him in 2 years. And so like putting time back into people, and you lose family members as you start growing up as well, and you regret not spending more time with them. So put your time into people and put the time into yourself. I think that's what I would say to myself if I could like go back and change things, rather than them actually being like real tangible things that I've done.
mm,
I think about like the way that I feel, because going along a founder journey and going along like a big switch in the way that you are as a person can actually really take its toll on you, because there is in everything in life a trade-off.
mm,
uh, if you're not going out and you're working on yourself, you're trading off the social aspects of life. If you're at home building your business on the weekend and not doing the time with family or friends or whatever that might well be, or sitting around watching Netflix, there's a trade-off there, right? So what trade-offs are you willing to make, and then be okay with those, and then get after it, man.
perfect, Matt. And super motivating. And what you say there, just like it gets alarm bells ringing, and I'm sure everyone can relate to, it's like sunk cost fallacy, isn't it? You've probably had relationships with people where you've just done it for the sake of it, or you've done, you've aimed for like the job or the side hustle that you've not really related to, or you've got the passion to stick in with, and then just thought, oh well, I've invested this now, I've done that, or I've put this time and effort, and then that has had a negative effect. But you've always got to separate the
Mm-hmm.
wheat from the chaff, haven't you? And I think it's
Yeah,
super
dude.
important that I think the biggest skill that I always realize and sort of gets brought up, and when I do these podcasts and speak to different people from different industries, is having self-reflection and mindfulness is one of the biggest steps into your own personal journey. And do you think that when you had that, from where you mentioned it, it was almost like you picked that scab and then the floodgates opened, and you opened that up to your friend, and you told him sort of this position that he was in. But was that almost cathartic to have that self-reflection, maybe epiphany?
Yeah, do you know what? I think it was coming, and so it was a case of like the band. I was probably putting a band-aid across of the band-aid and
Mm,
across top of the band-aid, and it was like it was a full rip-off. And I think every now and then that's healthy, because you are totally right. You have this sunk cost fallacy to a lot of your life. And a lot of that can sort of mean that you do just go, oh, it'll be all right. Oh, that'd be okay. I'll deal with it next week. And, or I won't, I won't dump the girl or the boy or whatever that might well be. And because, I've been 3 years now, but actually I know it's not right. But you just stay and you stay and stay. And then what happens is exactly the same, right, with a midlife crisis. It's exactly the same. And so, like, when the guy, like, divorces the wife, leaves the kids, buggers off, gets the, young girlfriend and the red sports car. Do you know why that is? Is because they had conformed and they had suppressed their actual desires for so long that it all just went bang.
Pressure cooker.
And then, yeah, it's a pressure cooker. Exactly. And so, what's the pressure cooker in your life that's filling up right now? And the earlier you can identify that, the better you are going to be as a person. This is a big world with a bunch of different people in it and a hell of a lot of locations that you can be, live, you can be who you want. And so asking yourself those questions and then taking action on them is the most important thing. Like as an example, we've moved to the countryside now from living in London. That was a dream of mine. And we've gone there. And we've realized very quickly that, like, actually we don't really like being around old people and like having to drive to the shop, because that's what's around here. And so we're actually making a move into a bit more of another area in deep Kent, which has got loads of stuff going on, and I can walk to coffee shops and bars and restaurants and stuff like that. So like we instead of just being like, no, we've made this decision, we are staying here, we've listened to our guts and then we're making that move. And I think that can be brought over into so many different areas of life. Like, I'm not telling you to go and dump your other half and move to Bali here, by the way. That's not what I'm getting at. It's just like, explore yourself, like what actually makes you do these things, and what am I not doing because I feel like somebody else is going to judge me or have that effect. Like, it's only going to end up eating you up inside. So just take action on it.
Yeah, and there's almost two lanes of contention, isn't there? I think, anyway, personally. Feel free to disagree, but like, you've got the contention, which is, the guy who suppressed himself and was like, that just lived with the mundane. The person we was talking about before, it's like, well, this is okay. This is okay. I'll just do it. And then there's actually sometimes you're like, I'm actually happily content. This is what I wanted, and I can move forward with that. And I think contention has a bit of a negative stigma, because the most of the people who are content are the ones who have built their prison up to be grey and miserable. And it's really refreshing to hear you sort of piece that together. And I wanted to ask this question because, it's the age-old question around money. And I've seen different things about it. It's the thing of, does money buy happiness? But from what I'm listening to you, it buys freedom. It gives you the opportunity to do what you want to do. Would you agree with that statement, or want to add anything to it?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. So money does buy stress-free life, and a large part of stress is related to money. So you can remove 90% of your stresses in life by having enough money to afford the things that you need to pay for. There's a limit to how much money you need before it starts actually being negative on your life, and people around you start wanting it from you or treating you differently. But there's a point, and each person's point is different based on where they are, who they live with, their friends, their family, their circle around them, and the way that they conduct themselves. But money does make you happy because it gets rid of those things. The only thing that can't is like the true value inside of you. Just to round off that point we were talking about before, because I think it's really important, is that there's kind of really three things that are the main things that you actually need to explore. And that's who you're with, boy or girl, straight or gay, it doesn't matter. Where you live, do I like it? Do I actually want to be here?
Yeah.
It's a big world. And three, what are you doing? Like, are you actually, are you going to work for the sake of going to work? And we all need his paycheck because we've got bills to pay. But if it's really not the thing that you want to be doing, are you taking the time outside of that to put the hour in or 2 hours here? You know, you see it all the time. People work on evening out, open university courses, etc., to completely flip their career. They, take a course, they start the business on the side and they build it up for 2-3 years. And when it finally earns enough income, they pull the plug and they go all in on their thing. So doesn't mean starting a business. It can be, actually, I really want to be a nurse and I haven't gone out and studied for it, so I'm going to need to. And that's totally fine. So it's those three things. If you get those right, then actually a lot of around it will fall into place because you're in the right place, you're doing the right thing, and you're with the right person.
And I think it's very quintessentially British to to like just settle, isn't it? And I think like especially around money and things like that and work,
So,
like especially from like a working class background, that industrial mentality of sort of, well, I've just got to be thankful I've got a job, I've got to do that. And there is an element of that. Obviously, it'd be
oh
naive
yeah,
to
100%. I'm
say,
not. I'm
but
not saying
oh no,
it's
I
not.
agree with what you're saying. And but like sometimes we're just sort of happy to play with the cards that we're dealt with. We never twist, or we never burn and ask for a new set. And when you started helping people, how
Mm,
difficult was it to get that shift in mindset for them? Because I imagine, again, going back to that, I imagine you've got people now not in the UK that follow you and get involved with you. But when you first started with your mates, and like I said, there's a very stereotypical Brit in all of us. How hard was it to bring that wall down and be like, go
yeah,
for it?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think there's two parts to that question. It's like, first off is like, you are the sum of the five people you spend the most time with. It's
100%.
just a fact. And I get so much hate every time I say that. Do you know why? Because people don't like looking at the fact that that's probably true. Okay. And like, if you start earning 150 grand and your mates all are earning 30 grand, whatever, big hypothetical example here. Again,
Yeah.
don't come for me in the comments, but they will look at you differently.
Mm,
They will treat you differently because you are now not like them. You've stepped out of the pen
yeah.
and you've gone and done something different. And so that's why travel and getting out there and having new experiences is important, because you see how different worlds and different places operate. And if someone wants, like, never take advice on the thing that you actually want to do in life from someone that's never bloody done it. And I know that, again, that's an old age quote, but it's so true. Go and find the people that have done the thing that you want to do and take advice from them and start spending time with people like that, and you'll watch your life completely change. I've still got my old mates that still live in the same town and still do all the same shit every weekend. They're my pals until the day I die. And when we turn up and we see each other, it's just like nothing had ever
Yeah.
changed. But I've gone and I've explored life and I've done these different things, and it's brought me joy in other ways, right? So you don't lose the mates, you just change and you grow as a person, and I think that's really, really important. But you can still do that from your hometown these days because we have the
Yeah.
internet.
Shout out the
So
internet
you know,
helping us right now.
yeah, exactly. And so, like, getting people to shift their mindset really is, for me, was largely around possibility. So, like, here is what £100 could turn into in 30 years if you invested it. Big number. Everyone's like, what? They're like, well, that's possible for me because I can afford 100 quid. And they're like, okay, cool. Like, cool. I like that. I like the sound of that. Let me get some of that. How do I do that? Well, cool. Now we're talking. Do you know what I mean? So, like, you're asking the right questions. So it's more about showing what's possible to someone, and then working backwards to actually show them how to do it. And then the last part is trying to change someone's habits, and that is the hardest part, and kind of why we're building what we're building at the moment, and why I think that actually changing someone's habits is probably the most important thing in this world, because I truly believe it is like we can teach you everything you need to know, but if you can't change your habits every single month, then you're going to be doing the same thing all of the time when it comes to your personal finances.
100%, and that's so transferable to everything in everyday life. My background's in, fitness and exercise, and again, if I was,
I'll see you in your ice bath, dude.
yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
give it a go. I give it a
yeah.
go. But like, you know, you can take a horse to water, and I think sometimes, it's up to the individual. You can, provide as much resource, provide as much content, do this, but it's about them actionable changes. As you'll know, I mean, you smashed it. I've been seeing your story with your personal fitness journey and things like that. So yeah,
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 getting there,
getting
man.
there.
Slowly.
Yeah,
Yeah. Still got a bit of the old timber still to shift,
is it
but
calisthenics you're
uh,
doing? Is it that Cali
yeah,
stuff? Yeah,
calisthenics.
are you
Yeah,
finding that?
I love it.
Yeah,
I tried so hard. Like I tried everything. I did like high rocks, hit, and calisthenics was the first one. I was like, this is tough, but like I couldn't
it's
do it.
fucking cool as well for be able to move your body in a way that's controlled and strong.
Yeah, yeah, and like also you go up levels with it like real
Mm.
quick. So like you start on like big red bands and like bouncing up in here and like basically someone holding you
Yeah.
up, and then you start going down to like orange and yellow, and then you're like, I'm getting stronger, and this is clear.
Mm.
Even though like I'm not necessarily looking like the Hulk, I can feel and look and see it's literally right there in front of me. I can touch it, and so I really like that, and so. Also as well for me, I lack when it comes to fitness. For some reason, I will always tell myself that like I need to do that email or I need to record that podcast or whatever, and I just won't go. So with the calisthenics stuff, I do group and then some personal training stuff as well. And it's like I paid for it.
Mm.
I've got to turn up,
Accountability.
otherwise he's gonna shout at me.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I need an accountability partner. I need an accountability partner for my finances.
Mm.
I still talk to a friend who's a financial advisor and just soundboard, am I doing the right things? And he'll just be like, Sammie, you said you were going to do
Yeah.
this. And I'm like, yeah, all right, fair enough. You're totally right. Like, and so I need that too when it comes to my money as well. Like, I'm not perfect. I think it's really like, it's just, for me, fitness and money has kind of got intertwined
Mm.
now. The more I focus on myself and I get fitter and healthier, my business has gone like that. My personal life's gone like has massively improved. Relationships with my family, my other half, all of those types of aspects have just got better. I feel because I'm holding myself better. I turn up better. I'm in a better mood, and so I think they are very interlinked. So if you're really struggling right now and you're in a pit, like, and you feel like you're not getting anywhere with work or money, start by training and like getting your head right. Because it is all downstream from there. I really do believe
Yeah,
that.
it's like a Venn diagram, isn't it? I think wellness, when people think of wellness, they automatically think of, the ice baths, the sauna, the training,
Yeah,
but we have spiritual wellness, we have intellectual wellness, we have financial wellness, there's a vast broad horizon of what wellness actually means. And like you mentioned before with finance, it looks different for everybody. And, speaking of looking different for everybody, when you go on your website and you can see you created these courses and things like that, how was that dealing with a wide range of people and sort of not giving a piece of yourself to people, but almost sort of that vulnerability of saying this is what I know and I think it will benefit you. Do you ever deal with sort of like the imposter syndrome? I know you mentioned there about the content and just getting it out in there, but you're a confident guy, like you're a good speaker. You've had this background in, you know, um, like bars, nightclubs, and stuff like that. Was the transfer still difficult to sort of be like, actually, this is me now?
product.
Yeah.
Yeah, um, yeah. It really is. It's not easy to like go and sort of put your thoughts and things down and then try and get people to use it. But I always say this to people, like the reason why we ended up doing the paid stuff wasn't actually so, because what we have done is just reinvested that back into absolutely everything else to make sure that the podcast is better, the content's better. Like I reinvest every single pound that I make from those courses to run the team, to be able to put out the stuff for free, to help people that can't afford these things or have no interest in paying for a program because they only wanted one little bit of information. And that's totally fine too. The courses are there because someone exactly like me with a personal trainer needs things laid out in a way that they can follow, and they need someone to hold them accountable. So all of our programs, when you buy them, you don't just get a video course. You do get a video course, but you don't just get that. You also get me. I do monthly calls with all of our communities, and people can jump on and ask us questions. We have a community chat where people can jump in and ask questions, and I'm in there every morning answering questions about all different types of things with personal finance and investing. We have one for content creators as well to help them launch their own businesses, and so I think it's really important because it was kind of that journey for me. It was like, well, if you really want to learn, you can probably go and find all of the nuggets from the millions of bits of content that we put out, but putting it in the right order is really difficult for people. And if I was going to do that and put it in the right order and put, sometimes, for example, our program, Stock Market School, we probably spent about 3 months working on that, like almost every day. It took a month to film and edit. And so like, I can't give that for free. Like I just can't. Do you know what I mean? And so, but it's still massively affordable. Stock Market School is now £197, or you can pay 2 payments of £99. So it's affordable, and it's like, will you invest in yourself to get the better outcome? And that's the way I look at it. So yeah, we're very fortunate to have over 1,000 students in Stock Market School. And yeah, all of our other smaller programs and stuff like that. It's cool. The next phase for me is the most important, and it's really about putting something in every single person's hands. And yeah, happy to talk about that too if you want.
So definitely segued nicely into that. But the one thing that I wanted to ask before we get into it was, I know from my personal experience, and you mentioned there that this WhatsApp group, it had a lot of people in that you knew or knew closely. What was it like the first time you got that 5-star review from that person you never met?
Person I never met. Yeah, the first 10 or so was me like, can you please leave a 5-star review?
Just can you just subscribe and review? It's honestly, we've not.
Yeah.
That was me with this.
I promise I won't. Yeah, you got to do what you got to do to get ahead, of course. But the main, I tell you what, the first time someone bought, I've got an Investing for Beginners ebook, and it's now at $7.99 because we've massively built it out, and it's a proper read now. But back then it was 50 odd pages of me sort of helping people learn about investing, and we sold it I think for £2.49, and no one bought it for weeks, right? It was up there, and then just randomly one day I got this like email come through, and it was like £2.49. I can't remember the guy's name, John I think it was, but I remember he was from Crew, and I was like, what? Like someone from Crew just paid me £2.50. I was like, that is mental. And like, I can't get my head around that. Like, and that was it for me. That was like fire up my backside that I needed. And I was like, right, let's go. Like, and that was the sweetest £2.50 I've ever made. And I've actually still got it in a jar right here.
Love that.
So I went and got it out of the change store downstairs, and I'm never taking it out. It's the first bit of money that I ever made through this business. But for me, the whole point of the business is helping people at scale. And then the programs really are for people that want to sort of take their learning to the next level and get it laid out for them. So
helping people on a scale is the next big step, isn't it? So do you want to talk a little bit about that? I know that.
Yeah, well, you can see it here.
There it is. I've seen like teasers on your Instagram, sort of talking about it. But what is it? What is next for Up the Gains?
Yeah, so as I said to you before, like the real problems that we've got at the moment are costs are increasing for people, and people will really struggle with like the habits of doing things successfully, and the kind of awareness around money. And the current landscape is budgeting apps that are kind of glorified spreadsheets on a mobile phone, and they don't really understand you. They're just kind of a great bit of software if you want to learn how to use
Bit
it,
of a
but then you
cookie
still have to
cutter.
put loads of time. Cookie cut, exactly. You still have to put time into it. You still have to like update it all the time, and it becomes a job in itself, which is tedious for people. And they're like, well, I could have just written this all out on an Apple Notes on my own spreadsheet. Do you know what I mean? And they're like, what we are doing is essentially utilizing AI. We're building the first UK's first personal finance app that's powered by AI. It still has the budgeting uh, within it,
Mm.
but you can talk to your money.
Wow.
So you can say, how much have I spent on takeaways last week? And it'll be like £49.50. And you can press a roast button and it'll be like £49.50. You probably should slow down on the chips. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It will have fun with you as well. But it will also, highlight areas of your spending where you can potentially save, and it will allow you to create custom budgets. It will allow you to save money on your spending as well, because we'll have direct integrated cashback deals with 250 of the UK's biggest retailers, from Tesco to ASOS to Airbnb to Uber,
Wow.
to everybody. It'll be all integrated in app, and you don't need to change a thing. And we will basically, the whole thing is, we're going to make your life less expensive. It's an app, you can download it. There's a free version which will have tons of features. There is a paid version which will have even more features of that. But the free version, we've made it so good, because otherwise I wouldn't be sticking to my word, that actually you can use the free version, and it will still have more than enough on there for you to sort of really enjoy. So it's a crossover between managing your money, and then we're going to actively put money back in your pocket through these cashback deals as well.
That's insane, mate. And it's just sign me up. I'm in. You've sold me. So yeah, you've definitely got some money
Yeah,
there.
mate, we'll get you in the testing. We'll get you in the testing rounds.
I'd love
But
to give it a go, but it just sounds, everything we've talked about and everything we spoke about is probably what people are screaming out for. It's interesting though that you mentioned, these apps, and you see them plastered around and you can try them all, but they're all so similar with just a different color background or a different
exactly,
app font. And
exactly,
for people who, don't have that knowledge and don't have that education around it, you just add in another spoke in the wheel of complications and intimidation, and just probably reverting them back even deeper into that hole. So to have something like, AI that it can have a laugh with, it can, give you that comfort and cashback. Like it sounds like exactly the right step forward, especially for, the industry.
100%. Yeah, and we want to put those habits in place. So if it's like, I hate the coffee analogy because everyone uses it, but like, let's say for example that you're like, I want to only spend in Starbucks 3 times this week. You can speak to the AI and it will set up a custom challenge for you with its own little dynamic dashboard for you, with a little coffee emoji, and it'll, Sally's coffee challenge or whatever, and it will track it for you. And if you hit it, we'll reward you with points, which you can exchange for cash. So we're also going to be doing lots of like challenges within apps. We're going to be introducing something called the Gains Gold card, which is where we'll pay for your shopping.
Wow.
Or if you do well, we will give you cash rewards. We'll do all of these different things if you are actively trying to improve your finances. So you can get involved with challenges, leaderboards, games in app as well. So we're really sort of taking that gamification side of your money and putting it into play, but also giving you some element of control around what the gamification is around, like what's important to you. And the reason why we're doing this is because of the personalization aspect. Like, Jack, you're massively into your fitness. If you're spending £200-300 on, training gear 1 month, it's not going to judge you on that because it knows you. And so it's like, it's going to understand that about you, but it's going to also then work with you to find space in your budget to actually make that happen, so it doesn't bring the whole rest of the house down. So that's what's really key. And the more you interact with it, the smarter it gets about you. and it's designed to help you. It's designed to never judge you. That's why we've not got these like big red like if you have overspent in a certain area, it's not going to be like minus £100. It's going to be we've built it more like a wellness app for your money. So that's Gains, and you can sign up now. We have the waitlist open, and you can jump on there, pop your email in. You can head to gainsapp.com, and we're paying for one lucky person's shopping for an entire year as well. So there'll be a draw on the day that we launch the app.
So when it come, have you got a date for the launch or not? Or is that still hush hush?
Yeah, no, it's so we're aiming for autumn 2025 is what we're saying. So back end of October is the planned go live date. Those that jump on the wait list as well before then, we will be offering people to come in and test and use the app as well. So we'd love to get as many people as we possibly can in to play around with it, give us some feedback, and make it as good as it can be.
Sounds incredible, mate. And I'll pop any link in the description as well for people to check out.
Thank
and
you.
I'll definitely be checking it out. So it does. It sounds brilliant.
Yeah,
and
man.
like, again, not trying to sort of like blow smoke up you while you're here and on the podcast and that, but it's refreshing to sort of see that someone who has come from the reoccurring issues that most people find with finance, and then what you've learned, you've applied, you are that guy. And I think that's what is refreshing, is that, you've been there, you've done that. And it goes back to what you said before, when you speak to people, when you're asking for advice and what you want to do, make sure then people have done it. And I think the fact that you've done it and you've been there and you're on this journey, I think it just solidifies and gives it sort of the authenticity that these other apps don't necessarily have, from my experience, because they're another company behind another logo behind something else, and like you said, they're just sort of cookie cutter and put out there and forced for the people. So yeah, I buzzing for it. It sounds great, and it's definitely something.
Thanks, man.
That I hope people, when they listen, check it out, and I'm sure it'll be a big success. So before we go, because you're a busy guy, and I appreciate that we've just smashed through over an hour so easily.
All good. I've loved it.
But there's always two questions that I ask guests on the podcast. And
okay.
The first one is, if there were 3 habits that you use in your everyday life that you would recommend to the everyday person, what would them 3 habits be and why?
Just so for me, I like to remind myself like what I'm actually grateful for every day. And I know that sounds super weird, but like even just taking and very like spiritual, and some people might not like the whole woo woo thing, but just even just thinking like what have I done today that's like been good in my life? Because we can have a lot going on around us and different things, and we can get so bogged down in the negative that taking the positive at the end of the day from whatever aspect of your day has probably been a really kind of big change for me. Then also as well is I now as well have like I have it set in my calendar every single day in the morning. I have to check in with someone.
Nice.
And that's just been really cool because I send mates text messages like, "Hey, how you doing, man? You all right?" And like the responses you can get back and the conversations that opens up is actually quite cool. Like I didn't realize like sometimes just even checking in with your mates every now and then is just really, really important. And as a bloke, that can be double hot.
100%.
So that's been fantastic. And also as well, another like Andrew Huberman aspect as well.
Love that.
Is yeah, you can see I've just fully become that most insufferable guy.
I'm with you, mate, don't worry.
Ice bath, sunlight, you name it. I'm in. But I get outside, man, in the morning. And I'm up early anyway. I've always have been. I'm one of those, again, very insufferable early risers, and my brain switches on. But I'm in bed early as well, so it flicks. It has its positives and its negatives. But yeah, getting outside, like just having 5 minutes out in the garden. I always have my coffee outside, and it just makes a massive difference to my day.
100%. I've started doing that as well. Got a nice little chair, sit under the veranda, have a coffee in the morning. And I mean, There's a reason that all these Stoics and philosophers 2,000 years ago were recommending going out and walking. They had all the best thoughts when they was out there, and just touching on the three things that you shared there, they're brilliant. And thank you for sharing them. I understand that's quite a personal question, so and it's on the spot.
It's
But the
cool.
gratitude thing, mate, and the spirituality thing is brilliant. I think as
Yeah,
humans,
man.
we're wired to have a negativity bias just because of evolution, this, that, and the other. And I think in today's society, the topics we've talked about, the hedonic treadmill, living the life, the sunk cost fallacy, you name it, insert here. Our brains, when we're in bed, is just spiraling that red alarm signal.
Exactly.
And I think when you,
It's a
yeah,
reset.
100%, when you can just pick three things to be grateful for, a slight gratitude practice, the exponential growth of that is massive as well. And it's probably something that you again, we go back to using the analogy of finance, and that you probably don't see it until you notice it and you're like, wow, this has been the thing. And the check-in thing is a new one. I've never had that, and I love that, and I'm going to steal it
Yeah.
from you because it definitely is.
6 p.m.,
Yeah,
man. 6 p.m. It's in my calendar every day.
yeah,
And I get the Google Calendar notification pings
mm,
me, and I have all my notifications on my phone are turned off, other than phone calls and my calendar, just to remind me, because I often forget that I'm supposed to be doing something.
yeah,
And so, when it pings me straight away, I already know as well. Now I already know who I'm going to
yeah,
message, and sometimes it's like my family or my mom or my sisters or whatever that might well be. But then sometimes I'm like, been thinking about it all day, like I should really speak to that person. And you'd be so surprised just because I know it's coming up. I'm already pre planning who I'm going to chat
yeah.
to and what I'm going to say. And then just dropping them that message. It's just such a nice touch. And yeah, it just rekindles a lot of like relationships, and you get invited to more things. You start showing up for people in different ways you didn't realize were possible. And just, they're like, fucking hell, you're a busy guy. Like, what are you messaging me for? And I mean, and vice versa when they do
Mm.
it back.
And the
So
impact of that is massive, isn't it? And I imagine it's super cathartic to sort of get that nice response, and it's super fulfilling when you get that
yeah, yeah.
engagement. So yeah, I love that, man, and thank you very much for sharing it. And the final question is,
Yes.
if there was one habit that you've previously done or a habit that you've never done before and you'd like to introduce it into your life, what would that one habit be and why?
Introduce it into my life. Yeah. I used to be a massive reader.
Mm,
I actually used to love books so much, and I've tried my hardest to get back into it. And I think what I've tried is like, because I went down that whole like self help development business books. And what I really want to do is bring back reading, but what I used to read was
yeah.
fiction. And so I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start putting that back in my life now, because I think it's like just having stories and things in your head and just opens up your imagination. Like I remember reading as a kid and just thinking that you were in these stories, and I don't have that anymore, and I do miss that. And I just think reading is such an underrated habit, and it just slows you down a little bit as well at the end of the day, because I get off my phone and I get into bed,
Mm,
and you're like, well, I've got to sleep now, and it's not
yeah.
as easy. So putting that in place, I'd love to bring that back. Reading.
Reading's super meditative. It's something that is, a Kindle was a massive game changer for me. Sort of like with my,
100%.
my wife next to me, I don't have to have a reading light on or anything like that. I can do it. But moving to fiction at night was huge. I mean, I wouldn't
I
recommend.
really do you
Yeah,
do it?
every night, mate. I
Oh,
went I went
interesting.
from self-help books, finance books, development books, non-fiction stuff, and I'd be finding myself reading and reading, and then almost like not being able to sleep because I was like invested and that can happen with a fiction book, don't get me wrong.
Yeah. Yeah,
You're
yeah.
almost
One more
battling.
chapter. Yeah.
I used to call it like subheading paralysis. You're like battling the next subheading because you're like, well, I can't
Yeah.
finish a non-fiction book halfway through a paragraph because then I'll just have to start again tomorrow. So you're like, your eyes are like fucking 3-ton weights, and you're like trying to get through, and then you don't remember anything. So it's a pointless exercise. But when you do fiction, if you fall asleep halfway through a page, you just go back and read the page where you was before. So from my personal experience, mate, it's my sleeping improved tenfold, especially with like the Kindle and the like the blue light. I think I got the paper white one, which doesn't have like
Oh,
none
okay,
of the
interesting.
it doesn't have any of the red lights or blue lights, so it's good for your eyes and stuff, and a game changer, massive. And I try now to read exclusively fiction books before bed. However, there's been a few horrors and a few psychological thrillers that have negated that.
Sent you
Yeah.
sideways.
There was one that I
Oh,
was up till
yeah,
like 4 a.m. and I had palpitations. I mean, it was a fucking great book, but it did the opposite of trying to get me to sleep. But yeah, definitely recommend that one, mate. It's very good, and sort of it's almost like that gratitude practice. It just slows you down, and you're in the present. You're not thinking about what happened in the day or
exactly.
tomorrow. And I think before bed, if you can sort of, I know we was having a little joke before we come on air about power cycles and restarting. I think it's good for to give your brain that opportunity as well.
Yeah, 100%, man. Yeah, no, it's something I just want to do. I miss it, and so I think it's good for sleep. It's good for bed, but it's I think it twists your mind back into like believing more and seeing and feeling more about like how the world works, and just having like a bigger imagination. Like I feel with AI as well that's being shut off
Yeah,
in a lot of ways. Like we're relying on it to do these sort of tasks, and a lot of those tasks are those creative, imaginative
yeah,
tasks where we would have stretched our mind a little bit. So that's why I'm conscious about that. And I'm like, because I am leaning on AI to basically run everything faster, but not taking the time to like put that back
yeah.
into
It's
my
them
brain
reps
and
again that
keep
you was
those
talking
neurons
about before,
running.
isn't it? But in a completely different way.
Exactly.
A book that I think you'd
Exactly.
like. 'Cause I'm assuming you was a bit of a gamer back in the day, and it's a
Yeah.
random
Yeah.
shout out, but I'm reading the series at the minute. It's called Dungeon Crawler Carl. It's the
Okay.
maddest. I'll send it you later on. It's
Please.
the maddest fucking book you'll ever read in your life. But
Oh,
yeah, it's
cool.
like a combination of like Fallout and it's just like an RPG survival game, but written in a fiction book.
Hell yeah.
It's fucking
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's
I'm in.
hilarious, but it's mental.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Like I was all over like Lord of the
Mm,
Rings and all of
yeah,
that, like growing up. So I just literally like would sit there and do the 1,000 book
yeah.
4 part
Heavy book as well.
trilogies. Like,
Heavy books. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Thank you so much, mate. This has been again. You sort of said before, like sometimes you don't always look back, but for me, you've been a massive influence, and this is a real privilege
Thank
and an
you,
honor
man.
to do this. You've been on my list to be a guest, so yeah, without like fanboying you too much, thank you very much for everything that you do, and I think you're excellent at your job, and long may it continue, and I look forward to see what comes in the future, definitely with the app and things like that. And
Yeah, man.
before,
And you two keep this up,
thank you.
mate. Like podcasting's long, but it's great fun when it gets going. It really does. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, thank you. Yeah, let people know where they can find you, what everything, your links, your website,
thank
your
you.
socials, a selfless plug after listening to my dulcet Wigan tones for, an hour and 20 minutes.
No, I appreciate it, mate. Look, gainsapp.com. You can find me pretty much anywhere, but that's where I really want to start sending people. So yeah, Gains app on socials and Gains Money app on socials and gainsapp.com. Jump on this, come join part of the community, ask us a bunch of questions, and yeah, hopefully we can help you.
Perfect. Well, I'll get all that in the description below, and I'm sure the people will love what it is and checking it out.
Fingers crossed. Build it and no one turns up.